My understanding is that you're a lover of solar. Like any one of your buyers or sellers that have solar on their house, that just really excites you.
It excites me, but not in a good way.
Not in a good way. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, fortunately, I've only had two sellers that had solar on their roof through the 5 years I've been doing real estate. So I've only had two solar nightmares so far.
So you think that's a good number.
So far.
Yeah. So solar, by the way, in the marketplace today out there, solar is kind of a big deal. Like there's a contingent of people out there that think that every house ever built should have solar on it. And many of the new builders are now putting solar on nearly every house they build. So I think the challenge with solar comes in how was it acquired?
I would agree with that. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I don't think a lot of people that are not buying new properties or new construction that have the solar built in, when they're buying solar and having it put on the roof, I don't think they're doing the due diligence they should be doing, because we run into the problems when they want to go and sell the home. What are they going to do with the solar?
So tell me, when you say they're not doing their due diligence, what should they be paying attention to? What should they be checking into?
Well, obviously they're checking the price. That's a given. But I think most people don't think that, oh, we're going to move in 3 years or 5 years, especially when they're buying solar. I don't think they think about that aspect of it. And the reason I say that is that two of my clients who had the solar problems, the problems came when it was time to sell the house.
So let me be clear. You've had two solar situations in your 5 years.
Yes.
And both of them were a problem.
Correct.
Got it.
One of them is current right now, and the other was 2 years ago.
Okay. So I guess I can understand why you'd be challenged in the solar world, because if you've only had two and both of them have been challenges, and I'm aware of the situation, so I'll agree they've been a bit of a challenge for you. But tell us about them.
The latest one, I have a seller they would like to sell and downsize. They're getting a little bit older. They're just trying to make life a little bit easier. And they did not realize several things when it comes to moving from one house to another and what to do with the solar, whether leaving it at the house or taking it with them to the new house. So, for example, looking at the numbers of taking the solar off their roof right now and to a new roof they're going to buy, it's $7,000 just to take the solar off the roof, transport it to the other house, which is in the same town. It's not like it's going out of state.
They're not going to Chicago?
No.
Interesting.
$7,000. And it has to be with the solar's people that do that. But $7,000 is a lot of money.
So to move it from house to house, it's going to cost $7,000.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that they repair the roof of the house they take it off of, and they put it on the new house.
But those are small little holes. It's not a major construction project.
You're still pretty bitter about the $7,000.
I am.
So let me ask, did these particular sellers, do they own the solar? Did they lease the solar? Because what we do know about solar is there's several ways to acquire it, right? You can buy it outright. Like you can have somebody come out, it's like buying a car. It's going to cost $34,000 to put your solar on, and this is the upfront fee. Or you can buy it on payments, right? So you still be the owner in the end of it. You're going to own the car or the solar, but you're going to pay payments every month. Or I'll tell you what else I can do. I can lease it to you for a much lower price, and you're going to have a lease payment on it for X amount of years. And at the end, you can do like a $1 buyout, and at that point, you would then own the equipment. Now, let me be clear. I struggle with the whole lease part of it because it's like leasing a car. I lease a car for 10 years, 12 years. At the end of 10 or 12 years, the car's not going to be worth $1 anyway. Technology is going to have changed. The panels are, so for everything that happens in the solar world and the technology and all the equipment and the upgrades and the efficiency, all of that stuff changes year after year after year. If you're 10, 15 years down the road, why would you, I want to pay someone $1 to get it the hell off my roof, not leave it there. That's for sure. That would be my opinion anyway. But these people actually want to move it. Like they like it. It saves them some money.
saves them. That's the bigger reason. And then the other thinking about it is not everybody wants solar. So if they do leave the solar on the roof, then they need a buyer, one that can qualify to get a loan for a house and then qualify to buy the solar.
Yeah, so they got to take over the
you're
payments.
weeding out a few buyers out of all the people that may look at your house. So you're making it harder to sell.
So your clients currently are actually struggling with getting the home sold or even getting it on the market because of the solar transfer.
Correct.
I think they've got to pay some enormous amount of money to pay it off before they'll even transfer it, right?
They owe $49,000 on the solar.
Okay.
And their monthly payment is $240 a month. If they stick with that plan, it'll take 23 years to pay off. And at the end, they will have paid $66,240.
You have all the numbers. Yeah. Wow. So they got into the plan. Somehow someone got them to buy this. And let me ask this: do they have to pay the $49,000 to move it to the new house, or do they just want to pay it off? So because they're downsizing, they're getting a little older, trying to reduce their monthly
With
fees.
the company that they got it through, yes, they have to pay it off to move it.
Okay, so they don't even get to spend $7,000 until they spend $49,000.
Correct. So just to get out of this house, if they, that's another almost $60,000.
Yeah. Wow. So sounds like they didn't think about the end game. They didn't think about
Same
what it
with
was
my
going to
other
take to
client.
get out.
They didn't think about moving.
Tell us about that one.
So that was a client we had 2 years ago. They had two houses next door to each other. Both houses built in like 1960. They wanted to sell both, take that money and buy a new home.
I remember this one.
And they had solar only on the
For
one.
more reasons than the solar, let me be clear.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole nother story that we can talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can't.
Just another horror story in the real estate business, but
So same thing. They were trying to figure out, okay, should we leave the solar on the roof or should we take the solar with us? And that company that they worked with was charging them $8,600 to take the solar off the roof and transport it 5 miles to another house.
and reinstall it.
Yeah.
Here was the interesting thing on this one. This was already paid off. This solar was already owned. Like when they had it put on, they paid for it and they owned it. They were just trying to get it moved from one address to another address that were fairly close to each other. And if I remember correctly, the whole fiasco of getting so what happens when a solar company sells you solar is they put a lien on the property. It's a recorded document that goes on the property, and you can't sell that property unless the solar company releases that lien. The title company won't record it. You can't sell it. They got to get, but they wouldn't. So here was the catch on this one. They wouldn't release their lien until they had moved the solar. But they couldn't move the solar until they bought their new house, and they can't buy the new house till they sell their old house. And so now you might understand the circus that we were in of trying to get the solar off of the house so they could get that home sold. They could get the new home bought, and they could get the solar put on the new home. And the challenge was that the lien that they were going to release on house number one needed to immediately be recorded on house number two. But they didn't own house number two yet. And so there's this time frame in between when they sell house number one and they own house number two, where the solar company is now exposed because they don't have a lien recorded somewhere, right? And that was our challenge.
Yes.
And I remember your client worked just tirelessly, literally every day, worked with the solar company to try to figure out a solution on how to get it off the house so they could get it sold.
And every day that you talk to a different person, you got a different story when you could actually talk to a person.
Yeah.
And their company moved from here to Texas, which created a few more problems for us.
Yeah, I actually think that's a little more of a challenge than many people know about, and that is that solar companies go out of business and they record these liens on the property, and now they're out of business, and It's very, very difficult, not impossible, but very, very difficult to track down who has the authority to release that lien.
And that was part of the problem, because one person would tell Jody, the wife,
Jody, yeah.
you know, yes, we can do this, this, and this, but that didn't happen. Then you call back the next day, you don't get that person. Now you have to talk to another person, explain the whole scenario. Then they have an explanation on why they can't do it or this, that. It was...
Yeah, I remember there were 2 or 3 weeks there where she was literally on the phone every single day talking to somebody different. She could never get back to the same person, and it was just this ongoing challenge.
So when I spoke to the husband, and he said that if they had to do it again, he wouldn't.
So they liked the solar. It saved them some money on the power bill.
I don't feel it saved them as much money as they thought it was going to save them, based on my conversation. And then furthermore, I mean, he was saying we had other problems. When we put it on the roof, there was a tree right in front of a big pine tree in front of the house. So that casted a shadow on the solar, which then the solar's not working up to speed
Efficiently.
Yeah. And then there was a tree in the back of the house that casted a shadow from there. So there was those problems. And then he said that if leaves and whatnot fell on top of the solar panels, it would cause a panel not to work. So he's not happy with it at all.
He wasn't happy. Has it helped in their new home at all? I know they've installed it on the new home.
See, that's a difficult thing too, because I have been told for my client currently that they need to get a breakdown of what this is saving them. And trying to get those numbers from Nevada Power is very difficult.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you can get from Nevada Power is a 12-month average. So you can call Nevada Power. This is information that public should know. You can call Nevada Power on any house, any address. It doesn't matter. You don't have to own it. And you can ask them what the 12-month average power bill for that house is. And so keep in mind that's going to be winter. It's going to be summer. It's going to be the hottest, so they're going to give you a 12-month average. So that you can't get an exact month to month unless you're the owner of the property
And you're keeping track.
and you're keeping track of it by keeping a copy of your bills. And the bills, by the way, come electronically nowadays, and it should be fairly easy to keep those. And it's probably getting easier to get copies of those from Nevada Power. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge to get exact numbers, especially if you're trying to buy a home and you're curious to know what the monthly power bill might be in that house. So let me share. So I've had some solar situations in my few years I've been doing this, and just recently had one. In fact, my buyers bought a home. It's a custom home, and it has solar on the home that was purchased outright. With it was like going and paying cash for the car, right? There's no lien, there's nothing recorded on the property, and so because of that, when they bought the home, there were no hiccups. Like there was literally no, we got to get the solar company to transfer the lien into their name, or we've got to transfer. There's none of that stuff, right? It's just they paid for it free and clear. Somebody mounted it on the ceiling or on the roof, and it works good. So that was a good experience, right? It wasn't leased, it wasn't owned. I had one a few years back that I had a young couple with a couple little kids moving to Vegas. He was coming here to open up, to be the general manager of a new restaurant that was opening here. And by the way, one of your favorite restaurants, I'll tell you later which one it is. And the home that they fell in love with had solar. And this was, honestly, this was when solar was relatively new to the world. Like we didn't know how it really tied into housing. And so, the wife called me. She said, hey, listen, we have to qualify to take over the solar lease payment. And how do I do that? So I figured that out, called the solar company, got them in charge. So they did qualify, no problem. It was all good. But then her next question was, do I even want the solar? Like, can I just have them take it off the property? Because we don't have solar from where they were coming down from Utah. We don't have solar. We don't know anything about it. We don't want the problems. And unfortunately, it couldn't be removed. It was a lease. It was tied to the property. There was a lien on the property, and there was no way to buy it out. That was before the whole buyout thing happened. And so we had to try to figure out if it was worth having or not having. So here's what we did. It was a bit of a science experiment in the real estate business, by the way. What I did is I found the address to the house they were buying. and I found out exactly what floor plan the house was, what square footage it was. And then I called up Nevada Power and I said, hey, luckily the solar had been on this house for almost 18 months. So I was able to get a 12-month average power bill for that specific house. And then I knew how much the solar lease payment was. So I took the solar lease payment each month and the average power bill a month, and that's what their power bill was going to be. That's how we equated it, right? So then on the exact same street, I found another house that was the same exact floor plan that faced the same direction, because, the sun, whether it hits the back of your house or the front of your house or the side of your houses, like all of that matters in Vegas because it gets so hot, right? I mean, if your back of your house faces west in the summertime, you literally melt if you go in the backyard. So I found another house, same floor plan, same square footage, that faced the same way on the same side of the street. If I remember right, it was within 4 or 5 houses of this particular house. And I called and got the 12-month average power bill for that house. And so we were able to compare what the monthly power bill would be for these 2 houses. Now, of course, I don't know if there's 13 people living in this house and 3 living in this one. And, there's just certain things we couldn't figure out. But we were able to determine that with the lease payment and their monthly average payment for the 12 months, they would save about $100 a month based on what this house down the street was. So my experience with that one was that, and it was the very first time I'd really ever been involved in solar, and I had been super anti-solar. Like, I didn't want anything to do with it. If someone told me their house had solar on it, like, I would just like shy away. If I was looking at houses, like, and my clients want to see a house that had solar, like I was talking bad about it. I probably shouldn't have done that, but this was actually the first time where I kind of had my eyes open and went, wow, $100 a month is a substantial savings. And in this case, it was already there. They didn't have to do the whole down payment. They didn't have to do the whole initial blah, 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 blah. They just had to qualify for the payment. So in that case, it made sense. What I will agree with you is solar can be an absolute nightmare. And what people don't think about is they don't think about the end game. Everybody always thinks they're never going to move, right? They always think that there's nothing that's going to happen. We're going to be here forever. No, I kind of thought the same thing when I bought this huge house a few years back, and one of my kids went away to school and the other one was gone playing volleyball all the time. And I'm looking around going, wow, $900 power bill a month for me and my wife and this dog that we have. And it just didn't make sense anymore, right? Even though we love the house. So yeah, I think it's important. I agree with you. They need to do more due diligence. They need to be more in tune to what happens if, rather than here's how much it's going to save us. Correct. And when we're trying to improve the environment, and I get the environmental argument, that makes sense to me as well. But at the same time, if I'm going to be tied down to something I can't get out of later, I mean, look, $49,000, I got to pay it off before I can even spend $7,000 to have it moved. And they lock you into who you can have move it. Like, that company is the only company on the planet that knows how to do it. This doesn't really, that's kind of, I think they call that a monopoly, right? Like, they're really making them do something they probably don't have to do, but it will probably void the warranty if they don't. And so, there's all these things tied to that. So I agree. Guys, if you're thinking about getting solar, think about it. Do your due diligence. Think about the end game. What happens if we need to get out? What happens if we got to leave this house? On my client that bought the house that the solar was paid for, this was a custom home that her husband and the owner had built, and unfortunately the husband passed away unexpectedly, and so there was this woman that owned the home, and she doesn't know how to take care of it, and it's way bigger than she needs, and she can't stay there, and it's an unforeseen, unfortunate situation that she had to move, and luckily it was paid for. Luckily, it didn't turn into a big challenge in that sale. So, yeah, I agree. Do your due diligence. Think more about the end game. Think more about what it takes to get out of the solar than what it's going to take to get in.
Exactly.
So good luck to your client.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but we'll
Neither
keep
are
working. Well, we'll keep working with them, right? They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out. They're going to Searchlight, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're making a big change in life. They're getting out of the big city and heading out to a little smaller place out in rural Nevada, I guess you'd call that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks. I appreciate your opinion on solar. We have a lot of the same opinions. I think there's some value to it, but please check the end game.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks.